is a huge honor for me to be podcast interviewing my buddy forever, Daniel Greenstein. You go by Dr. Dan though.
Yeah, Dan, Dr. Dan, yeah.
Dr. Dan. And you were my God, I've known you forever because you did stand-up comedy. You've been doing stand-up. I remember seeing you at the Profitable Dentist in Destin, Florida with Woody Oakes way back in the day. How many years ago was that?
That's probably 25 years. I just saw they're going to have their 25th anniversary gig this spring in Destin, and because of you helped me get that gig. So that was one of my first dental jobs, and I really appreciate it. I'll never forget that.
So he's having a 25-year anniversary?
As far as I know, I got one of the Profitable Dentists pamphlets. There's newsletters.
Google Profitable Dentist, see when the dates are. So are you going?
I'm not sure if I'm going. I wasn't planning on going. I wasn't asked.
It's in Destin, Florida, huh?
Yeah, it's always at the Sandestin, as far as I know. I haven't been there in a long time, but I was the entertainer for the first 5 years, yeah.
Oh, man, I love Woody. He's a good old boy. He actually had the Profitable Dentist newsletter. At one time, back in the 90s, there were 3 newsletters. There was Woody Oakes, the lead kingpin, Profitable Dentist newsletter. Then the Maddow brothers started the Maddow Report.
Yeah.
Right? And then I had the Farran Report. And back in the day, I think those were the 3 best sources of quality information because they were all down-home real dentists getting material submitted from real guys in the trenches doing it as opposed to these professional writers for all the throwaway magazines that all they do for a living is write stuff as opposed to learning this stuff the hard way. It kind of reminds me of McDonald's where when Ray Kroc set up the McDonald's R&D Center in where was that in Illinois? Their headquarters, Des Plaines, Illinois.
Okay.
Their R&D center never invented a single successful product. Like the fish sandwich came from a guy in St. Louis because none of the Catholics would eat on Friday night because they couldn't eat meat. I mean, all the big hits came from real franchise owners in the trenches, and then all the stuff from the academics and the McDonald's R&D center. Everyone is.
This is going to blow your mind because I still have your cassette.
Oh my God!
This is how I met you, and these are cassettes. Now I know you said.
Oh my God!
You said that most of your listeners to your podcast are kids under 30, and I just wanted to tell them that these are cassettes. By the way, I don't know if they've ever seen tape cassettes, but
they probably haven't.
This is before CDs, before MP3s, before streaming. And this just came right after, 8-track. So I still have this, and I dug this out of a closet, and I still remember listening to this when I first met you, and I said, this guy is crazy. I love this guy. And I had to find it when you invited me to do this with you.
Oh, my God. I wonder what year that was.
I'm not sure, but it's Dental Mania. I recall you mentioning that you just opened your office, and I still remember the town, Ahwatukee. I don't know why I would remember that.
Oh my God, that was so long ago.
Unicycle, I think, on a parade, and you promoted yourself by handing out toothbrushes on this parade, like for 4th of July or something, and you were riding a unicycle. Is that correct?
It was the Easter parade. They have it every year, and it's a mile-long stretch down Ahwatukee, and at the end where the park is, you have all these booths. And I filled up my just big old bags of toothbrushes with my name and phone number on it. I got on my unicycle, and I was the float, and I just unicycled down the road handing people my toothbrush, my name and number on it. It was so damn funny.
Well, out of all the stuff that I remember listening to this, that's what stuck in my mind. So.
You know the funniest thing of that, Oxford? That was in my first house. That was in '87. I remember the blue chair in my bedroom, and I went in there, and I just wanted to talk to Dennis, and I set this audio set, and I taped it in. How many cassettes were it? 12 tapes long?
I think, yeah. 12, yeah.
And somewhere during the tape, my oldest boy, my firstborn son, Eric, was about 1, and he walked in the room, and he said something like, Daddy, I want a drink or something. But anyway, so here it is 10, 20, 30 years later, and the only thing people ever walk into remember is say, yeah, I bought your first cassette, your program. I'll never forget when your son came up and asked you for a bottle or a drink or something.
Oh, okay. Well.
And I just thought, and that's really the essence of marketing. They don't remember the technical stuff. They don't remember the price. They just remember how you made them feel.
So now, look, you've come from cassettes, to being the king of dental, all dental media, and doing this podcast. And it's an honor for me to be here, and to think that I'm following Carl Misch, because you just interviewed Carl Misch during this week. To think that me, Dan Greenstein, Dr. Dan, is following him, a legend, just blows my mind also. So it's just fantastic. So thanks for inviting me.
And since that cassette, I went from riding a unicycle to being carried around in a wheelbarrow. So that's the main difference. But yeah, Carl Mish, man.
Now you're doing Iron Man, so come on, that's impressive.
Well, I'm trying to reverse 50 years of bad habits, and I've done 3 Ironmans in 3 years. You know, I figured I didn't get into this mess in overnight, and I probably won't get out of it overnight. But speaking of health, you had this health issues a while back, and you scared me when I heard about my buddy. Is that too personal to talk about?
No, I want to talk about it. I want to tell dentists, and I want to make sure that people are taking care of themselves. So 5 years ago, at age 52. I had to drive my wife to the airport, and I woke up early at 5:30, sweating and short of breath and with this tightness in my chest. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm sitting here in bed, and I'm having a heart attack. And my wife's like, come on, we got to go. You got to take me to the airport. Let's go to Fort Lauderdale. Come on. And I'm like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And she's, you're not having a heart attack. Get off your butt. Take a shower. You just don't want to take me to the airport. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just in denial, and I'm having all the signs, you know, sweaty palms, sweaty feet, breathing really weird, and this strange tightness. And I was spinning the night before at the gym and never had any issues of cardiac problems before. I had been on Lipitor for a long time. My cholesterol was always a little high. I was on Losartan for blood pressure, but aside from that, everything was fine. And so I have this tightness, and I said, you know, I'm going to just double up on my Lipitor and take 3 baby aspirin. And my wife's, come on, let's go. You got to take me to the airport. And should I go? I'm not sure. You know, it wasn't this crushing feeling, but I just didn't feel right. And I've got this huge deductible and co-payment, $7,000 and $500 pharmacy deductible. My wife's like, come on, you're not going to blow $7,000 to find out that you're just nervous. You don't have a heart attack. And stupidly, I got in the car, and I drive all the way down I-95, and I take my wife to Fort Lauderdale. I drop her off, and I'm still having this chest pain. And I go to the local hospital, Broward General, and I walk in, and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And they hook me up to the EKGs and all the monitors, and, you know, no, you're fine. You're not having a heart attack. Everything seems okay. But I still had this tightness. So I'm about to leave the ER. And my brother-in-law is a medical doctor, and I give him a call, and he says, you're not leaving the ER. You're staying there, and we're going to find out what's wrong with you. And next day, they did a cardiac catheterization of my heart, and the cardiologist, the interventional cardiologist, says, you're under a lot of stress. You're a dentist. You live in Boca Raton. You have 2 kids. They're in college. You know, you got 30 years of fixing teeth. Let's find out what's really wrong with you, because I'm pretty sure you're going to probably need a couple of stents. And I almost took myself off the cardiac cath lab when they told me, you know, we got to go through your groin and put that tube up inside your heart. And once you hear groin, that's not good. Once you hear the word groin, it's never good groin. So that kind of freaked me out. And next thing you know, they woke me up and they said, you need a triple bypass. We can't even do stents. You're so clogged up. You're 90% clogged up. And I was like, what? You didn't do the stents, you know? And they said, no, we couldn't do it. You need open heart surgery. And that's a big wake-up call. So 3 days later, I get transferred to a different hospital, Boca Raton Regional. And, you know, I'm ready to go. And I was lucky. I had a triple bypass. And now here we are almost 5 years later. And I'm lucky to be here. I mean, it was pretty close. They were amazed that I never had any symptoms before. And the last 5 years have been great. And I'm just very thankful.
Wow. Now, Clinton talked about that that when he got a bypass, what he didn't realize that, you know, he thought he was fixed now, and what he realized that just kind of tied you over for, you know, not even a decade. What is that changed since Clinton had a bypass?
I hope not. I don't want to go through that again.
I mean, what is it? Follow up like a 6-month recall with a hygienist, or is it an annual follow up, or what's a follow up like after a bypass?
Okay, so you have to have. I go, you know, twice a year to the cardiologist and EKG and just regular checkup and, you know, blood work. And every 2 years, they want to do a nuclear stress test. So I had a nuclear stress test done about 3 or 4 months ago, and they put some dye inside you. They put you on the treadmill. They take radiographs before the exertion of the heart, after the exertion of the heart, during the exertion of the heart, and they monitor, you know, how your valves are doing. Not your valves, your vessels are doing, and the bypass grafts are doing. and I had 2 grafts taken from the center of my chest, the mammaries. They open you up and they can dissect off the mammary arteries over to the heart, and then they took one from my leg. So and the one from your leg is a vein, and that's the one that sometimes can close up. But the ones from your chest, when you're young enough, they can take those, and those are supposed to be a lot better. So they move them somehow over to your heart, and they go over the blockage. And from what I understand, I had, a great guy here at Boca Raton who's not there anymore. And the surgery that I had was a very advanced procedure. They didn't stop my heart at all. My heart was still beating. They didn't have to put me on one of the lung heart bypass machines. So, my heart was never stopped. So that was a good thing for me.
Wow. So what advice would you give to the dentists out there listening? I mean, at what age should you do your first? I mean, they say your first colonoscopy. I had mine at 50. It was the first time I let some man go where no man has ever gone before, and did that. And I'm glad I had it done because he found 3 class rings and a hubcap. I don't know how they got up there. And then they had he took the MRI of the brain. He said a lot of the stuff you die of at 60 in the brain, could have picked up at 50. But I've never gone to a cardiologist. I'm 53. What age do you think dentists should, for the first time, go to a cardiologist and have someone who specializes on the heart?
Well, yeah, I was really mad at my primary, and I dumped him since this happened for a couple reasons. And other people had told me that, because of my cholesterol levels and my history of hypertension, that they were surprised that I didn't go to a cardiologist earlier, like 45. And I said, no, I never thought about it. My primary never recommended that I should do that. So, I've talked to other people, and they're telling me, for the people who have those kind of history, should go earlier, at least to a cardiologist, and see what they think, just to get yourself checked out. They also have now some different tests that they can do where they measure the calcium inside your coronary arteries, and obviously it's a lot less invasive than a catheterization of your heart, but the catheterization is still the gold standard to see what the heck's going in there. But for a screening test, they're not going to do that. So you can have a stress test and get on the treadmill, but there's a lot of false positives and false negatives on a stress test. I took myself off the catheterization lab because I was afraid, and I just didn't want to go through that and I was just going to do the stress test, and if it wasn't for my brother-in-law, the medical doctor, insisting that, I have the catheterization, I could have walked off the stress machine and got in my car and still had an MI just driving home, because there's a lot of false, negatives on a regular stress
So
test.
your wife's brother's a MD?
My sister-in-law's husband. So my wife's got a twin sister.
Yeah.
Her husband is an anesthesiologist.
Huh. Do you ever worry that you get those two girls mixed up?
People have, on the phone sometimes they've tricked me, but not in person.
I went to high school with 2 twins, and I swear to God, I didn't know how anybody could know them apart. I mean,
down the street, my kids, there's a set of twins, and my kids have known them ever since junior high, and I still can't tell you which one's who.
But I know I'm getting old and senile because last week I was in the grocery store, and there was this lady pushing 3 triplets, and I just freaked out like, oh my God, I haven't seen triplets for I think it's been 25 years. And she says, yeah, they're not triplets. In fact, there's not even twins there. She says they're 1, 2, and 3, and you're old and senile. Well, Dan, you've been a dentist. You graduated from dental school in '83. Yeah. So you've been a dentist for 33 years.
33, yeah.
What's your, when I get an email from a podcast, I think that the Carl Mish downloads, it's already passed like 7,000. We've already passed 500,000 downloads. But whenever I get an email from a dentist about the podcast or whatever, I mean, they're like 2 years out of school, 3 years out of school, or in dental school. So they're all kids. They're all under 30. We're in our mid-50s. What advice would you give these young kids about lifestyle, stress, dentistry? Because I know you and I are cut from the same cloth where, we lighten things up and, we can joke around. But some of these guys are just intense. Well, what would your advice be to these kids?
Since you just said that, and since you talked about your colonoscopy, sometimes I find it amazing that gastroenterologists can even do colonoscopies on dentists.
That's a good one.
You need an apex locator to find your butt crack, Beep,
yeah.
beep, beep, beep. And some of these, people are uptight, and you just got to chill out. And since I had a lot of stress before my wake-up call with my triple bypass, and I had financial stress, I had office stress, I had some personal issues, and just a lot of things that were just building up. And when I was in that hospital bed, I just made a commitment that I had to change my life. And when I realized after with this huge scar on my chest, when I first saw that, I said, wow, something's got to change. And I did a lot of reading, and I looked back and I read stuff about dentists and stress, and I saw myself in all those things. And the things that you talk about, dentists should never practice alone. I mean, that's a big thing, that, isolation. We're in this little room all day. We're working on this little space. We're working on this little tooth. We're thinking about 8 million other things. I was such a control freak over every little thing, sticking my big nose into the schedule, reviewing everything that the staff would order, listening to everything that the front desk would say, and making comments, and just over managing, and just not letting the staff do their thing, and taking a step back, worrying about the schedule so much, and just this constant pressure over you to run things like Superman, and just perfection. And it's just impossible to attain. You just got to take a step back and take a deep breath and just realize that you're doing the best that you can. And, none of us are going to make it out of here alive. So you just got to chill and here I am. It's a beautiful day here in South Florida. It's a fantastic day. And
so is that your office then?
Yeah. This is from our operatory. This is the operatory right here. And I just thought, with such a beautiful day here with the palm trees right here, I just had to use that as my backdrop.
Now, can coconut trees grow down there?
Yeah. We have coconuts, sure.
Because in Arizona, we got the same palm trees in my front yard, but there's no coconut trees down here.
Yeah, I don't really know the different species, but we have
No, my gardener says they won't grow. It's too cold.
Oh, I don't know.
I guess Florida must be warmer than Arizona.
Well, I know it's a lot more humid, that I can tell you.
Maybe the humidity. Yeah, that stress, you talk about working in a small area, in a small mouth, whatever, but, when you're next to a human, we're hardwired for empathy and sympathy.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
So when they're feeling pain and they're grabbing the chair, I feel my heart go up. I feel my breathing. So unless you're a sociopath, when you're working with people who are stressed out, I mean, I know oral surgeons that just say, no, I put everyone to sleep because it's too hard on me. It's too hard on me when they're feeling the pressure or whatever, because I put them out so I can relax.
Exactly. The patient anxiety is definitely transferred to you.
Absolutely.
That's another factor. That's definitely another factor, that you're watching them, you're seeing their facial expressions, you're feeling what they're feeling. You're feeling badly that you're doing this sometimes to these people. And, I was reading that general dentists and oral surgeons, have higher levels of emotional illnesses more than other dentists. And then the fact that you said that this other oral surgeon just says, look, I'm just going to put them to sleep, so it just makes it easier on me. And then on the flip side, it's also talked about that studies have shown that orthodontists have less of these issues with stress. And, because orthodontists, their only problem is, are the parents going to stay together for the entire treatment? That's the only thing that they're worried about. So, they're not inflicting pain. They're not giving injections. There's no bleeding. No one comes in getting all crazy that they're going to the orthodontist. But here we are as general dentists. And as you said, the stress of the transfer of watching the patient's anxiety into you, I agree. Blood pressure, heart rate, sweating, all those things you feel.
And I always take over on when I feel that, I kind of jump on it for me, the patient, and my assistant. I say, I just start talking slowly because I notice when I'm starting to feel that, I'm holding my breath now. So then instead of me just taking a deep breath, I verbalize and say, okay, just breathe, take a breath, and say, relax your hands. And I'm relaxing my hands. I'm giving it a shot. Wiggle your toe. And I'm doing all that for all three of us, because we're all feeling it. We're all hurting someone. And we're all in this together, and I just talk myself through it. And the other stressful thing is, I think dentists always have people on the payroll that they don't want to play with in the sandbox. And rule number one is, you got to build an environment where you want to play with these people in the sandbox. And if you don't walk through that door and crack a smile, like when the instant I saw you, I just burst out in a radiant smile. But when you walk into your office and you're under your breath thinking, God, I hate that bitch. Well, you can't give her money to be in your. You need to build an environment because it all feeds. It turns into a cancer. And don't pay people. Don't work in a cage and pay people money that you don't want to be in there. Build a sandbox where you want to play with your buddies in the sandbox, and that's a big factor on the stress.
That's another thing, yeah. But I've gone through a lot of staff. You know, some people can keep staff for years, and sometimes my relationship with my staff, that's another factor. You're right, that you definitely have to get the right people on your team and be able to all get along and have fun. And I'm here in this beautiful plaza now, and there's 5 great restaurants. There's 3 bars. It's very easy to, you know, have a fun time to go out to lunch, have a couple of drinks after work. So, you know, that's something that we definitely do and enjoy, you know, going out sometimes and getting to know each other out of the office. And it's definitely fun. It's easy here because it's right here. It's just, you know, I'm on the 3rd floor. So just got to go down 2 flights of stairs. And there's this whole beautiful environment that we can just chill out and just have some fun.
And, you know, I'd say after owning a dental office 28 years, if I had to ask, like, what's some of the coolest, what was like the coolest thing about having a dental office 28 years? I'd say that's a hygienists and dentists that had come and gone over the last 3 years. They worked for me for 7, 10, then they became teachers at schools or moved or opened their own dental office. Are now half dozen of them are my best friends. And it just I always take the people part the most serious. I always think everything we talk about is the details. But if you just, it's, you know, say we're on playoff Saturday where it's, you know, eight teams this weekend or got a wild card play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the bottom line in the NFL is, did you get the right players on the team? It's just
And
all
when,
the players, I think, when I think of stress.
Since I'm here in South Florida, that's been a big issue. Ever since Marino's left, they haven't been able to get the right players on the team. So I definitely hear you with that. So.
And another thing that I think that causes a lot of stress in dentistry is all these institutes that are not really grounded in reality. And I don't want to mention their names. I don't want to get back to the Pank Institute and the Spear Institute and the Coy Center and LVI and all those things like that. But, you know, they all talk about this perfect dentist, and they're dealing with someone who's already OCD, ADD, you know, undergrad.
ADD, you know.
Yeah, and they only got into dental school because they sat in the library for 4 years memorizing geometry. And they're already freaks. And then you're telling them to do this A-plus dentistry. And what I always thought to myself is, I do A plus dentistry when I'm working on dentists and hygienists and people that brush and floss every single day and take care of their mouth. But, you know, when I'm working on your cousin Eddie and he's a pig and he's not opening his mouth and he keeps sitting up and he's going to the bathroom.
And his phone goes off and he has to be texting while you're working.
And I finish my filling in the contact light. Well, I'm not going to sit there and run 15 minutes late and stress myself out for my cousin Eddie. I mean, so I match the dentistry. I always try to do a dentistry, and I will try and retry and redo when the patient respects what I get. But why do they come here? Oh, because you took your PPO, and they were 10 minutes late, and they don't behave. And I had to you know, Profi cup off the shit off their tooth before I could even start working on it. And then I finish my restoration, and it's a C+. That's an A+ for that patient. And I think a lot of people, you know these dentists will go crazy over a margin on a crown on a person that's never flossed. And they're sent it back to the lab and fight with their lab, and you got to redo it free, and they're running late, and they're doing all this stuff for some idiot who's going to drive out of your office, go to Circle K and buy a Mountain Dew, and still, and every time you hand him floss every 6 months, he thinks it's a yo-yo.
Yeah.
A broken yo-yo.
To do the best, you just got to do your best, and you just can't. You're a human being, and you're not a robot, and it's going to come out, and you just got to do your best and just give it your all. And sometimes you're on your A game. Sometimes it's not going to work out like that. It just seems to unfortunately happen sometimes that things don't work out. Everyone has that. I've got a patient right now. Crown just isn't working out. The patient's not happy. We're doing the best that we can. It's just one of these things. I can't explain it, but you go a month with no problems, and then all of a sudden, you got 3 days where what the heck is going on? What happened to my hands? Which stars did not align today that this is happening? But just got to wake up the next day, take a deep breath, and I'm taking a lot of yoga now. I'm meditating. I read Dr. Dean Ornish's books. There's a cardiologist named Steven Sinatra online that I go to his blogs, and there's a beautiful yoga class every Saturday outside here, 2 seconds from this plaza that I was already at this morning. Just fantastic. I go to that studio at least twice a week, and I just have to realize that you just do the best that you can, and that's the best you can do.
So, do you know Jeffrey Gurian?
I do not know Jeffrey Gurian.
I can only think of the only dentists I know who do stand-up comedy are Dr. Dan, you the man, Jeffrey Gurian, and Jimmy Earl, and me. And Jeffrey Gurian just had a heart attack last month. I wish you would call him because he was in total shock in the night. Same story as you. He just, he had no symptoms, nothing wrong. He's a dentist in Manhattan. Can you, Ryan, can you pull up his website, Jeffrey Gurian, Jeffrey Gurian, Gurin. He's been doing stand-up for 30 years. He always goes to that Canadian Film Festival. So they actually, the sponsors of the Canadian Film Festival, I think he's like one of the judges or anything on comedies or something like that.
The Canadian Film Festival or the Montreal Comedy Festival? I don't know this person. I know this.
Yeah, I think the second one you said, Montreal.
Yeah,
I think, but he's a legend. Yeah. You can't find his actual. Anyways, Jeffrey, Jeffrey Gurian, Gurian. Love the guy. He saw me lecture like 25 years ago, and at the end of the lecture, he goes, "Dude, you're pretty funny." And I said, "Thanks, dude." And he goes, "I actually do stand up." He was doing bars in Manhattan as a dentist.
Well, I didn't. 22 years ago, Colgate had a contest.
That's
for
right.
America's Funniest Dentist, and I won in Atlanta. And there was other face-offs, they called them, in California, in Chicago, and New York. And I was praying that you hadn't heard about it. Because I was saying, if Howard heard about this, there is no way that I'm going to win the coveted title of America's Funniest Dentist. So I'm in Atlanta, and I killed. There was about 18 or 20 dentists who had never gone on stage before. And I had an act already, and I won. And they flew me and my wife to Manhattan for the finals. And you weren't there. So I'm like going, all right, at least I have an act, and let's see what happens. Well, there was a guy from Dallas who ended up winning, and I had never heard of him again since. I don't recall the guy's name, but he did a Southern Baptist preacher bit dressed in this lavender, shocking pink leisure suit, and he killed at this little club in Manhattan, and he won the title for Colgate's America's Funniest Dentist. And I don't know who this Jeffrey Gurian, because as far as I know, I don't recall him being there. There was another gentleman from Queens, and there was a woman from Chicago, and myself, and this guy from Dallas who was the winner.
Will you email these two numbers to Dr. Dan? Well, I wish you would call him because you guys are two dentists, two comedians. He just went through this I think this month.
Wow.
And he just in fact he posted on Dental Town. He said, I can't believe I'm posting from a hospital. I'm in a hospital having a heart attack. I mean, you could tell he's just in shock.
For me, actually, I saved my heart wall. I actually never had a heart attack, so I was very lucky that they did the bypass before actually I had an MI. So all my tests all came back negative for having any actual heart wall damage. All my scans, all the like I said, the nuclear stress tests. So I was very lucky that they caught it before I actually had a heart attack. I just had angina. I had and not crushing, just this tightness. And, a lot of people would have just blown it off. And like I said, I drove all the way to Fort Lauderdale from my house, which is about a 35-minute drive. And I'm saying to myself, oh, my God, I'm going to die here on 95. And like this other doctor that you're mentioning, if he's actually had a heart attack, that's a situation that luckily I avoided for myself. So I was pretty lucky. So
let me have the stereotypes. People have all these stereotypes about dentists. Do you believe they really have high rates of divorce, alcoholism, suicide, or do you think that's just old?
from what I've read since from my own personal experience with what I think caused coronary disease for myself, that there is evidence that dentistry, other people in healthcare too, that people in the medical professions have higher rates of these stressful symptoms that bring on emotional problems and mental illness and unfortunately suicide. And right here in South Florida, from what I understand, recently somebody in his 40s passed away, and the dental grapevine has it that it was suicide. And I was pretty shocked to hear this, but the things that I've read, and I've read things in the ADA journal that do point to studies that do show that dentists do have higher rates than the general population.
And do you think that's because 99% of all the employees in dentistry are women? Is that what causes the high rates of suicide, alcoholism, or is that just is that correlation or cause?
That might be the divorce. That might cause the divorce factor. I'm not really
we should compare it because I believe in the last I saw, healthcare is 17% of the U.S. economy, and it was like 96.4% women employees. And the exact opposite at the other end was mining at 99% men, and the same one as dentistry but for boys was construction at like 94.6 or so. It was like, I think it was 96.4 or 94.6, something like that. So it's an all female employee.
Mentioned in the literature that I've read that because guys, look, now I think it's 50% of dental schools are women, right?
Yeah, it was a joke, Dad. It was a joke. Actually, the funniest part of that joke is my boy's grandfather, Bernard, every time for 20 years that he would come visit his grandchildren, and he'd walk into my dental office, he'd always have to pull me aside and tell me the same stupid story about how he worked at a machine shop in Mays, Kansas for 40 years with 6 of the ugliest men he'd ever seen in his life, who all wear overalls, and there was no air conditioner, and there was no light, and it was dark, and I get to work inside this beautifully lit, air-conditioned room with 15 of the hottest, most beautiful girls. And so then I would tell all the girls that he had said that, and of course they'd all, be silly with him and everything. He thought I was the luckiest man that ever lived.
You should see some of the staff that work with me. These guys, one of them just got married, and some of my male patients are so disappointed that she got married. They're like, oh no. So, that's why I miss the dark room, because I used to have that little dark room, and it was very convenient to bump into the girls, while you were in the dark. So now you don't have the dark room anymore because you got digital x-rays. So I miss that.
So how did you get into stand-up? Did you get into stand-up before dentistry or after? Were you a dentist before or after you got into stand-up?
So, I was a dentist first. Like you said, I graduated in '83 from Stony Brook, and I was just kind of bored and doing a lot of amalgams and just kind of bored. And then I opened this office in this town called Coral Springs, and I wanted to promote my office. And I heard Zig Ziglar speak at a local university talking about self-confidence, and he mentioned that you got to get out there and speak in public. And he mentioned this group called Toastmasters. And there was a Toastmasters club in this town that I just opened up my office, and they had a humorous speech contest, which I won, and then I went to the next level, and then I don't remember how far up, but they said to really challenge yourself, if you want to do humorous speaking, do open mic. Go to a comedy club and do open mic. So this is the late 80s, where every bar in the United States turned themselves into a comedy club, sort of laughs a lot, smile, happy now, whatever, and they would throw up a microphone at least once in a week, and they would turn themselves into a comedy club, and I started doing open mics. And my first open mic, I thought I was going to actually explode, and I think I was vomiting outside the theater, outside the club, and it went fine. And then next thing you know, one led to another open mic, and then I used to do this bit called the Hairy Club for Men, and the Hairy Club for Men got me on America's Funniest People. And it was a parody of the Hair Club for Men commercial, which your young listeners won't know about. But this guy, Cy Sperling, used to have this company, the Hair Club for Men, and he was also a client. And he was bald, and it was all about selling these toupees. and I'm really hairy. And I did a parody of the Hair Club for Men. I called it the Hairy Club for Men. So I would take my shirt off, I would comb my hairy body, and next thing you know, I'm on America's Funniest People doing the Hairy Club for Men. And I come in second, and I get tons of publicity. They had a PR department, and the Miami Herald picked it up, and the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel picked it up. And next thing you know, they're doing big articles about this dentist who does stand-up. And then one thing led to another. A dentist in Miami read about it. He invites me to do their local dental society meeting in Miami. It didn't go over so well because I didn't do it in Spanish. And there was a couple of gringos and all the other Cuban dentists, and they were basically ignoring me, but me and my wife got a free dinner. And another dentist was there, and he was an oral surgeon from Hollywood. And it just grew, and then I'm in Manhattan, and I heard about the contest that we were talking about, the Colgate contest, and then I met you somehow. I don't recall exactly. Maybe I saw your seminar, and then you had told me, or something happened with Travis and Woody, and I asked you, could you recommend me? And you said, yeah, tell them I've seen your act, that you're really funny. And then Travis and Woody really helped me out developing my dental comedy show, and that just one thing led to another, led to thing to another, and then I got on National Public Radio, because I do these parody songs, and I sent them my CDs, and it was just a slowly building of steps to create, the Dr. Dan Show.
That is now. Did it ever translate into more patients? Did you ever get any patients from all this?
Okay, so sometimes at the comedy clubs, the other comedians would say, "Oh, you're really a dentist," or patients in the audience would say, "You're really a dentist." And I go, yes, of course. Oh, I've got this toothache. Oh, I've got this. I've got that. And I give them my card, and rarely would they come in. But I thought that that as a hook, that would be something unique, and I would try to help that in my marketing as something different. But it turned out that it kind of backfired on me, where a lot of these newspaper articles were on my walls, and patients would see all this, and they would just kind of think I really wasn't serious about being a dentist. So I realized that they really wanted someone who was serious about their needs, instead of thinking that maybe I wasn't so into, practicing as a dentist, and I had all these big newspaper clippings and other accolades and other things from my comedy world. But I just, I like doing both, so I didn't see why it was such a paradox. But
I think comedy is the ultimate art form because there's no props, it's live, and I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned when a doctor's talking to their patient. I mean, they're using the props of the radiograph. You go to a dental lecture and they're glued to their PowerPoints and their handouts, and they don't really think. And even the dental society say, did you like his handouts? Did you like his presentation? Did he follow his presentation? And that's all what's going to ruin the information. I mean, like I interviewed Carl Misch yesterday. Carl Misch, me and him, two faces and two microphones, and we transferred more implant knowledge than if he was set up there with 3,000 PowerPoint slides and this and that. I mean, and what Einstein said, learning is what you remember when you forgot everything they taught you. Memorize all the crap in school and college, like what algebra do you remember today? That was what you learned, not all the formulas and all the laws and all that stuff like that. And I in fact, I saw a dentist several times in my 20 years. I've seen like a dentist talking to even his 2-year-old. We always tell the dentist that you drop 5,000 words of Latin and Greek, and no one knows what Latin is. It's a dead language. We don't live in Greece. No one has an idea. And several times I've seen a dentist, 8 years of college, talking. I remember this distinctly. His daughter says, she's 2, she says, I'm cold. And he's talking to her and telling her that she shouldn't have taken off her jacket. And then when he shuts up, he says, I'm cold. And then he repeats the whole damn thing. And I'm like, dude, she doesn't know a damn word. She said, you remember, like when we were watching Peanuts and whenever the adults talked, it was wah, 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 wah. I said, that's all she hears. She's probably got a 200-word vocabulary, and you're talking to her in full paragraphs, and you might not think that's important, but it transfers even to your patients. I mean, they're talking to their patients, and when you're giving a lecture, you don't rely on your PowerPoint and your hand. In fact, I don't even like comedians that walk out there with a puppet, or when Carrot Top would open a box and start pulling out these props. I mean, if you want to go do if you want to go do Hollywood where they can cut it and retape it and do dubs and sound overs, go do it. But stand-up is just you and a mic. And when you're talking to a patient, you don't need to be pointing to an X-ray. You don't need to be pointing to what are those programs? Patterson cells that explains what a root canal is, and yeah, you don't. Yeah,
I've got my model of a cracked tooth, so I do use my little cracked tooth model, I must say. So
and it's a crutch. It's a crutch.
you think so?
I absolutely think so. I mean, if you can't, and you know who explains it the best? It's all those down home country boys in like Texas. That old crown is it's like boots on a rooster, and we need to take that off and make them some slick. Make it all natural. You just got to paint a picture so simple with the least number of words. It's kind of like the ultimate joke. The ultimate joke is you're with fewer words, you're describing, and the person can see a red balloon. And then with like one word, you take a pen and you pop it, and all of a sudden the person realizes it's blue. And a laugh is involuntary. It's a surprise. It's like if I walked up behind you and went, boo, and you just like jumped. That's why some can be clean and some can be raunchy, because it doesn't matter. You pop a balloon, you can do it with the F word, or you can do it with another word that starts with F and ends with UCK, that's fire truck. I mean, you can be rated G or rated R. It doesn't matter, because it's a surprise. You didn't see it coming. You thought you were seeing blue, and now it's red. And you should be able to paint that image in your head about a root canal, a crown, or braces with the fewest number of words, and just transfer it. Everything else we use is a crutch, and stand-up will teach you that.
I don't know. In terms of my treatment planning and educating my patients, I got to tell you, I'm more like Carrot Top then, and Jeff Dunham, because I definitely use props, and I definitely explain things, and I definitely show things on the radiograph. So, I think visual aids in dentistry does help the patient understand what's going on. But look, I just saw Seinfeld, and like you said, Seinfeld did an hour and a half. He killed, and I love the guy. Doesn't curse. His whole act, never, ever in 30 years of doing this does he curse. And, there's a lot of young guys out there today who just F this and the whole thing in that hole, and it just doesn't do it for me. But in terms of the props in dentistry and explaining things to patients, I don't know. I've never really thought of it as a crutch.
But think of one story Seinfeld was telling you, that he was painting this image in your head about, something that happened with his mom or his daughter or work or at the bus stop or the subway. Did he have to pull out a little subway train? Did he have to show a picture of his mom? I mean, the geniuses, the best, can just put the image right into your head, just from their mouth to your ears, right in your head.
The great thing about the comedians that people like are that they have a reference point, that you're on the same page. If you don't have the same reference with the audience, then your joke isn't going to go over. And that's why some people, the younger comedians today seem to attract a younger crowd. Like the comedians that my kids like aren't the comedians that I'm going to like. So what I'm trying to say is that reference point needs to be common. So in terms of the fact in dentistry that we understand what we're talking about in terms of anatomy and in terms of how we can help the patient and in terms of what they need, but we're not at the same place. So the reference point has to be on the same page. So that's how I use my visual aids, so the patient can understand what I'm talking about. So, on that note, I think we're talking different things here.
Speaking of world-class comedians, did you see Rosie Barr's last Rosie O'Donnell's last deal about her heart attack? I mean, her HBO special, where the first 15 minutes was all making fun of her issue of heart. It's the same thing as you. She was at her home, she was in her bed, and she's like, and her whole point of having it at the beginning of her show was saying, dude, if you think you're having a heart attack, call 911. And she was sitting there.
And I didn't call 911.
And
I got shit for that at the ER. Let me tell you, they gave me so much crap. They said, you could have killed your wife. You could have killed other people on 95. You're a dentist. What are you, stupid? Why don't you call 911? And I'm thinking, I'm not really having a heart attack. I've got a $7,000 deductible, $500 pharmacy. It's going to be another $1,000 for the ambulance. There's no way I could be having a heart attack. So I'm rationalizing that this isn't happening to me. And I drive myself to the emergency room. So once I got there, they're like, you drove yourself to the emergency room? What are you, stupid? How come you just didn't call 911? And, I was in total denial, but, that's my advice, that if you're having chest pain, if you think you are, having something like that to happen, that you shouldn't follow my example on that you should just call 911 and let them help you.
And that was exactly Rosie O'Donnell's message. She's like, how could I be Rosie O'Donnell? How could I be this 50-year-old smart lady who's accomplished so many things and talking myself out of the fact that, dude, you're having a heart attack. And, she thinks it almost cost her life. So, hey, I want to switch back to you're down there in Florida. How many dental schools are in Florida now?
Okay, so University of Florida is obviously the one that's been here forever.
That's in Gainesville?
Correct. Okay, and I think there's 85 students there. I'm not really sure. And then there's Nova Dental School now in Davie, which is near Fort Lauderdale. And that's
in Davie? D-A-V-I?
D-A-V-I-E, yeah. Davie, Florida.
Okay.
And that's called Nova, and that's a private school, and that's been about 15, maybe 20 years it's been there, at least 15, I would say. And then there's a new one, LECOM, which I believe is in Tampa, and that was started by this LECOM osteopathic school in Pennsylvania. I don't know that much about it, but I think it's open now 2 years. And
is it Quaker? Is it a religious school? Is it private religious Quaker?
I don't know anything about the Quaker thing. I know it's private.
Are you telling me you don't eat oatmeal? You've had a heart attack and you don't eat Quaker oatmeal? Are you kidding me? My God, I'm going to make you. You are now a Quaker. You should go down there and start teaching. Say, hey, I should get a job here. I had a heart attack. I'm a dentist, and now I eat Quaker oatmeal.
I did eat oatmeal on this commercial, the Boca Hospital.
Quaker.
Huh. I don't know. I don't know.
But it's in Tampa. Is that one open?
Yeah. It's open. It's around Tampa, around there. Yeah.
Huh. So it is open.
Yeah, as far as I know.
I had a dental assistant that went to Nova. Elena. She was probably the best dental assistant I ever had. And I told her she had to go to dental school, and she was in denial for a couple of years. But you know how I knew? I've had two dental assistants become dentists. Elena and Nova and Kelly went to Oregon. And you know why I convinced them to go to dental school, just had to do it? You always know this with an assistant. You know how some assistants, they're retracting and suctioning and like they're afraid to touch it or it's going to burn their finger or whatever. I'm a bald guy. I have no head. I have no hair, no cushion, no nothing. And they would always be bulldog bumping my head. And I remember about 3 times the first month Elena worked there, I was getting frustrated. I'd literally reach out with my hand, put on her head, and push her back like a foot, like, damn, I need to see. And they were just so eager, especially during surgeries and wisdom teeth. And when an assistant is continually bumping your head because they're so excited they have to see and they want to get in the shit, you just have to sit there and say, dude, you were born a dentist. You want to be in there. You love blood. You love guts. And you want to see more than the dentist. You're supposed to be helping me, and you're blocking me. I can't even see because of your head.
And they're telling you what to do.
Yeah. And the other thing both of them could do is, some assistants you say, well, you want to do this and that, and they'll say, well, I'm not certified, or is that legal, or are we able to do that? When you're assistant, if you told her to do anything and she'd just jump in and do it without question, she needs to go to dental school. I mean, I could have told Elena and Kelly to place the implant, and they would have done it. They'd say, oh, thank you. They wouldn't have said, oh, that's illegal, I'll go to the board or whatever.
Well, the reason why.
Is it a religious school, government school, or DO school, osteopath? Huh. I'm trying to find out about that LECOM. I haven't heard of that one. Is that their only dental school in Tampa?
As far as I know. As far as I know, it's an osteopathic school somewhere in Pennsylvania, but I might be incorrect. They decided to open a dental school. That's the only information that I.
Well, hey, I want to ask you another question that's off topic, but just because we're in our 50s and these kids are coming out of school at 25. Going back 30 years ago, let's say you walked out of school. It's 1983. You're in we're both in our 20s. Looking back, dentistry. My buddy Greg Stanley says success has become more unforgiving. Back in the 80s, you could have made 3 or 4 major mistakes and still made it. Today, you can still make it if you do a lot of things right. But if you do some wrong things, you can really dig yourself in a hole. What advice would you give if your daughter just walked out of dental? So you got 2 daughters, right?
I have a son who's in medical school,
okay.
and I have a daughter.
Okay, so let's say your one of your 2 kids walks right out of dental school.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Well, when I graduated, I had $30,000 in debt. And I understand there are people who are graduating with $200,000 to $300,000 in debt between undergraduate and graduate school. And those numbers just blow my mind. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that kind of debt for university, for, going to school. So that's obviously a big factor. So that's a big factor in all these DSOs and all these big corporate dental boxes that have opened across the country. So, the bank isn't going to obviously give people money for $300,000 to $500,000 in additional debt to go open an office. I don't think they are. And that's going to be, a big problem for these people who are just graduating. So, the only thing that I see for a lot of these young people is to find situations where they can get their feet wet and their hands wet and learn, and then try to go out on your own and do your own thing. But at the beginning, I would think that you're going to have to be an associate and, learn how to get some speed and learn what it takes to sell dentistry and to deal with patients and to deal with the business of dentistry, which somehow you grasped right away. And, like I showed those tapes at the beginning, and that seemed very easy for you. And a lot of people, including myself, have, had struggles with that and the business side of dentistry. So I'll admit to that. And they should, that would be my advice, to get some experience and really see what the real world is like.
And, there's a lot of different business models. I mean, there's everything from a denture clinic to, whatever. But do you think there's any business models that are a must-have? Like there's CAD/CAM, same-day appointment crowns. There's lasers. There's some dentists place implants, others don't. Some do molar endo, some don't. Some do ortho, some don't. Do you think, if a young kid said, is there anything that I didn't learn in dental school that I really need to learn? I mean, if someone came to you and said, Dan, I want to have, just the typical American practice. I want to own my own office. I want to do $750 a year and take home 186, and I just want to be that guy. I want to. The $800,000 office taking home 180, and if I want to do that, tell me what I have to do. Do I have to buy a CAD/CAM? Do I have to learn how to place implants? Do I have to learn ortho? Do I have to do molar endo? Are there any things I have to do or I don't have to do?
Well, I would think that all those things that you said make it more fun, for sure. I mean, to learn how to do Invisalign, to learn all the new technologies that are coming out with the scanners and same-day dentistry, to learn to be comfortable in surgery. Where I went to school out on Long Island, we didn't have a lot of surgery experience, and it took me a while to take other classes and to learn more. And those things I felt were a bit of held me back because of the location of my school out there in suburban Long Island, and all these classes that you really have to feel comfortable to do a lot of these techniques that maybe you're not learning in dental school. But I think that to have the type of practice that you're describing, and also to enjoy it, is a key factor to grow and to be successful today.
Now, did you go to Long Island? Were you born out in Long Island? Are you a New York boy?
Yeah, I'm from New York, but I'm from the west side of the Hudson River, just northwest of Manhattan, west of Westchester County, another county called Rockland County, just north of New Jersey. That's where I grew up.
Can I ask you the stupidest question in the world about New York City?
Yeah, we'll see if I can.
I still don't get it. I mean, I'm an American, and I still don't get it. So, New York City, when you go to that city, it really seems like when someone says New York City or New York, they're only talking about Manhattan. But
correct.
The city actually is 5 cities under one name of a city, because a lot of times you'll say, oh, are you from New York City? No, I'm from Brooklyn. Or are you from New York City? No, I'm from Bronx. And it's like, dude, isn't that the city? I mean, what the hell is the name of that city? Is it 5 cities?
If you're from New York and you say the city, that's Manhattan, right? Exactly, right? Originally I grew up in the Bronx, and then we moved to the suburbs. But you're right. Each county, the Bronx.
Oh, those are counties?
Yeah, they're called boroughs, but it's like a county. Like Brooklyn is also called Kings County, and Queens could be another county. So,
but when you say New York City, it's really just Manhattan.
No, if you just say if you say New York City, it's all 5 boroughs. okay, to the average person. But if you talk to someone who's from New York and you say, I'm going to the city, or I'm going, just by saying the city, or if I'm going to New York, you're just talking about going to Manhattan. Otherwise, you would say, I'm going to Brooklyn, or I'm going to Staten Island, or I'm going to Queens. Yeah, usually you would say that. Like, this is the sixth borough down here in South Florida. This is the sixth borough that all the Northeasterners have moved down here. That it's like being in New York. It's just either you're in Latin America or you're in New York by living down here. My practice is either oy, 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 or ay, ay, ay all day long. It's either all Jewish grandmas from Brooklyn or hot young Latinas from Bogota. So that's my demographics. So it's like I never even left New York. So South Florida is the sixth borough. So if I'm talking to my fellow New Yorkers and they're talking about, oh, I was just in the city, obviously you're talking about Manhattan.
Funniest thing about New Yorkers in Phoenix is when the New Yorkers come to Phoenix, they all love Scottsdale. When they retire from Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Iowa, they spread out all over Glendale and Chandler and Mason, Tempe and Phoenix. They spread out all over the whole city. But all the New Yorkers love Scottsdale. And they'll tell you how it's just the greatest city in the world. And it's funny because when I go to Scottsdale, just nothing there reminds me of New York City. It's like I wonder what they see in Scottsdale that they don't prefer in like Ahwatukee or Chandler or whatever. But back to the toys. I like to focus on the toys because you've mentioned money a lot. You mentioned that when you thought you were having a heart attack that you even thought about your $7,000 deductible. I mean, I think you mentioned that 3 times in this zone. I don't know how much that's tongue in cheek because that's the name of your website. It is tongue in cheek, isn't it? What is your website?
Yeah, dentalcomedian.com.
Dentalcomedian.com. I always thought it was tongueincheek.com.
Right. Well, that got too confusing. So
it's dentalcomedian.com. But I didn't know if when you a lot of times when you say something, I don't know how much of it is just being funny. But back to that, you were talking about your $7,000 deductible. A lot of these kids are faced with, they're told that to be a rock star, they need a $150,000 CEREC machine. They need a $100,000 CBT machine. They need a $75,000 BioLace machine. You've been practicing 3 decades. Do you have all 3 of those toys?
No, I don't have. I gotta tell you, I don't have those things.
You have any of those 3?
I am still taking regular impressions. I'm still sending it to the lab. I don't have those things. I do I use rotary endo. I do Invisalign. I do some simple placement of implants, BioHorizons, Intralock, none of the complicated ones. And, in terms of the anatomy, I don't do sinus lifts. I try to, do bread and butter dentistry. And I have not made those big investments at my stage. And also, like we were talking about with stress, I'm not ready to commit to those big numbers right now. And, I go to the meetings. I think they're amazing, all these things, but I'm still waiting for them to, come down a little bit.
Well, it's funny because Warren Buffett, who I went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and he came over and talked to our business student school in 1980, and he still says this day that 95% of CEOs in the S&P 500 go to work all day to try to figure out how to do everything slower and more complicated and more expensive. And it's like you tell a dentist, okay, here's the deal. You take this impression, and it'll cost you like $10, and you'll send it to the lab. They'll make sure you get it back in 2 weeks. And the dentist says, really? I can mess that up. I'm going to go buy a $50,000 oral scanner, and then I'm going to reduce the country from 7,500 labs to 20, and I'm going to, and they just, the more money they spend at CE, the more they go in debt, and their overhead just ticks up. And I mean, I look back at 1975, average overhead for the whole country is under 50%. And now it's north of 65. It's like 64 and a half, almost 65%. And it's like every time they read something, they figure out how to drive their overhead up higher. And the patient ain't willing to pay more. The insurance company ain't going to pay any more. And it's like their definition of learning is trying to make the longest distance between 2 points until they're just, until they're 10 years out in debt and they have to work twice. They have to buy, it's like when you buy a $10,000 car and you have to pay for it over 60 months, you might pay $30,000 for that $10,000 car. The average house in America, when you buy a $100,000 house, and you finance for 30 years, you pay $300,000 for a $100,000 house. That's why GMAC makes more money than GM. And these guys will, they'll say, well, I'm going to buy this machine. It's 150. Dude, it ain't 150. Take your payments and add it all up. You just bought a house because no one ever asked you if they could have their crown at the same appointment. So you went and bought a house. I mean, it's just you know. So I like interviewing real guys like you because you'll say the real shit. I mean, no one owns Dr. Dan.
I'm not in the position to. I haven't made those investments to the high tech things. I see that I would like to do it, and I think for the young people, the young students that are coming out right now, that does seem like the way things are going. And it does seem exciting. It does, add a different level of patient. I've had patients ask me, I've heard about this. Do you have this? In terms of the single day crowns, I have had patients ask me that, and I've had to tell them no.
But what percent of your patients have asked you that versus how much does it cost? Will my insurance pay?
Yeah,
Can I make payments? Are you going to give me a shot? Is it going to hurt? What's it going to look like? I mean, can I have it in the same day come in the myriad of how much does it cost? Will it hurt?
Very few patients have asked.
I mean, what? Give me a percent. Give me a percent.
3%.
Yeah. So when half the people are talking about how much is it, and then your beloved staff who's been with you forever is always coming up to you saying, Dr. Farran, can you do me a favor? My sister's roommate's brother's cousin who married my nephew can you give him a deal? And I'm like, okay, but can you tell me how to make this deal possible for everybody? I mean, you're asking me for a raise. You want me to buy this. You want to remodel. But when it comes to your sister's cousin's nephew's roommate, you want me to cut my price. So if your lovers want a lower price, let's all figure out, like Southwest Airlines, how to do this shit faster, easier, higher quality, lower price. Because you should build a dental office as where you'd want to be a patient. And you don't want someone doing an onlay if you preferred that it would have been a DO direct. You wouldn't want to go to a dental office where they filed your teeth down for a crown if you thought it could be a direct. You wouldn't want to go to a place where it costs $1,000 if you thought it could be $500. Let's build this place like where you want it to be a patient. Let's use our God-given brain to keep one eye on the customer and one eye on cost, and use our brain to drive down costs so everybody can afford the freedom to keep their teeth.
Well, in terms of lowering the cost, aside from the actual machine, doesn't the cost get lower from sending a scan? And I know the labs are charging you less, so that's going to be a less overhead. Once the cost of the machine and the scanners go down, don't you feel that that's going to be something that's going to bring the cost down? And you don't have to have the machine to mill the crown. You could just have the scanner, and that's $15,000 or $18,000 or $20,000. So that's something that I'm considering, and they're just sending over the internet and just getting the crown that way.
But it's 2016, and Dr. Dan the Man Greenstein hasn't pulled the trigger on it. So, yeah, is the whole world going to go from analog to digital? Absolutely. Are there people making digital faster, easier, higher quality, and cheaper? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is most of what we hear bleeding edge instead of leading edge? Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
and
true.
When it's leading edge and it is a return on investment and it'll satisfy faster, easier, higher quality, lower in cost, you would have pulled the trigger because you're one of the smartest dentists I've ever met. You are, and you always keep it real. We are out of time. We are 3 minutes in overtime. Hey, I'm so glad that you did not have a heart attack. If you would have had one, seriously would have brought tears to my eyes. I'm your biggest fan. I love what you do, and I can't believe you showed me those cassettes. I have to remember that concept, that image. I mean, I don't think I've even seen that for a decade. And you also mentioned Travis McPhee. I'm going to hang up from you and call Travis. I don't think I've talked to Travis in a decade.
Ask him how he's doing, because I've tried to reach out to him. It has been unsuccessful, so I would like to see how he's doing.
I'll tell him you said hi. He's a good old boy out in Oregon.
He's just a great guy, and he really helped me a lot, and I really appreciated everything that he had done for me. So it was really a pleasure being here with you. I, once again, appreciate that you asked me to do this with you. It was really a lot of fun, and I just wanted to, if I could give a plug once again to dentalcomedian.com. If there's anyone out there who's having a meeting and wants something different, it's really great when the team is there. It's not just for the dentist, it's for the whole office. and especially the songs that we sing together and the slides that I show and all the stand-up that I do about going to work every day in the real world of the real office and the patients and all the interactions with the front desk and the hygienist and the doctor. And, it'd be great to be at your next study club or your next meeting from anywhere. I've gone from Florida to Alaska to Bangor, Maine to San Diego and everywhere in between. And it would just be a pleasure to entertain your group. So you can go to dentalcomedian.com and learn more. And once again, Howard, it was really great. And I just wanted to thank you again.
And did you talk to my son Ryan? You're going to put a bunch of his material at the end?
Yeah, he sent us over a couple CDs, so we're going to take some of the files off the CD and we're going to play it at the end of the podcast.
And then on those CDs, give that to Marie Leland, because she's the one who runs towniemeeting.com. I think we're coming up on our 13th, 14th meeting or whatever, but Townie meetings every about the end of March and April. Go to towniemeeting.com. Well, Marie Leland's the one who picks all the dental speakers and all that stuff. So I'll have Ryan give Marie Leland your stuff, and maybe we can get you out to Townie meeting.
Sounds great.
Well, I'll take you to the bar and feed you bacon wrapped cheese balls to help with all your health and wellness.
Cleared up, so that's what my friends are like. Come on, dude, come on, let's go. You're all fixed now. What are you worried about? What are you taking yoga for and eating, vegan? Give me a break. Have a pepperoni pizza for breakfast. Let's go.
Do you even have to be healthy? Because look at Keith Richards. Every time I see that guy, I'm like, he's proof that you don't have to do anything right and still live, right?
Because he doesn't have stress. That's the problem. He's having a good time. He's up there having fun.
Yeah, when you look at Keith Richards, that's probably a big part of it, isn't it?
I really think so. So I'm telling you.
Yeah, so just have fun and shoot lots of heroin. You can live forever with Keith Richards and have your own album someday. Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Dan.
All right, Howard. Thanks a lot.
Imagine no insurance. It isn't hard to do. No more stupid phone calls. No more paperwork too. Imagine all the patients showing up on time. Imagine no deductibles. It's easy if you try. No more yearly maximums. Never hearing denied. Imagine all the patients showing up with cash. Woo-hoo! You may say I'm a dreamer, but hey, I'm just a GP. I know someday you will join me in getting rid of these insurance companies. Well, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday. Another dirtbag rolls in. You can tell by his car and that nasty old scar he ain't looking for plain Vicodin. one's killing me. Now don't ask me for how long. Don't be giving me none of that Darvocet, 'cause I know it ain't very strong. Write me a script or some Percodan. Write me a script today, 'cause I'm trying to erase my whole memory, and you're my excuse for the day. It's a pretty good crowd for a Saturday, as my manager gives me a smile, 'cause she knows that it's me they've been coming to see, to get out of pain for a while. In the high speed it sounds like a carnival, and the office it smells like cloves, and they sit in my chair and throw spit in my hair as I watch them curl up their toes. Oh.
How about some crack? Would you just like some crack? I got a little cocaine here if you want. How about a nice script for Demerol or OxyContin? Yeah, that would be really good. I think crack is the way to go, though. Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Write us a script for some Percodan. Write us a script today, 'cause we're trying to erase our whole memory, and you're our excuse for the day.
Hey, it's past 10:30. Where the hell are you? We had you down for 9, and you missed that one too. I'm sitting on my butt here. It's all because of you. Could have done those crowns that we had planned to do. You want us to reschedule? Who the hell are you? You're giving me a case of the cancellation blues. You cancel in the morning, you cancel late at night. You leave a dumb message like, I hope it's alright. You cancel to play tennis, then your kids get the flu. Now my whole staff's got nothing to do. If you ain't called to cancel, then you don't even show. If you didn't owe me money, I would tell you where to go. Cancel when your fish died. You canceled because it rained? Your wife didn't remind you? Now that one's really lame. Your family came from Cuba just to visit you? What I've lost in production is giving me the blues.
Hey Doc, I hate to tell you, but I got some bad news. Your 8 o'clock's a no-show and your 9's not coming too.
We called you on your cell phone, but it wasn't on. We tried you at work and they said you were gone. Your home phone's disconnected, your beat bird didn't beep. I bet you missed your funeral, 'cause you needed extra sleep. I'm tired of your reschedules, I'm sending you a bill too, for giving me a case of the cancellation blues.
The cancellation blues.
Oh, I'm never gonna make it.
The cancellation blues.
Yo, this is Tyrone, I'm stuck here in traffic.
The cancellation blues.
Mañana es una buena por mi familia.
The cancellation blues.
Hey, this is Deb, I forgot. I have a nail
I got the
appointment.
flat tire, house on fire, no one called me. Cancellation blues. I've got the wrong day, I can't pay, I'll call you later. Cancellation blues. Cancellation blues.
I told you I couldn't make it.
Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. If you've seen it more than once, you know it's not a virus. When you take a whiff of it, you know it's not the nicest. Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. Since my patient could not speak, he really did look sad. I asked my staff to take a peek and they said it looked bad. So I went into my books to find out what was wrong. The biggest word I ever found, and this is how it sounds. Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. If you've seen it more than once, you know it's not a virus. When you take a whiff of it, you know it's not the nicest. Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. So when the guy has got some gums that really look disgusting, just memorize this word and it will look like you know something. You can call it anug, but it sounds worse this way. One time I told a patient and he fainted that same day. Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis. If you've seen it more than once, you know it's not a virus. When you take a whiff of it, you know it's not the nicest. Acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis.